What if Julius Caesar never fell to the blades on the Ides of March? No betrayal. No et tu, brute. Just one furious dictator with a second chance. Would Rome have become an empire even faster? Would Augustus still rise, or be erased from history? This is the Rome that never bled until it burned. Subscribe to the channel before jumping into the video. Let's dive into the video. March 5, 1044 BC, the day everything was meant to change. It was supposed to be the end of Julius Caesar. More than 60 Roman senators, including Brutus and Cassius, had planned to kill him at a meeting in the Senate. They would stab him to death and save the Republic from one man gaining too much power. But something didn't go as planned. That morning, Caesar's wife, Cleopatra, begged him not to go to the Senate. She had a terrible dream that something bad would happen. Caesar considered staying home. But one of the plotters, Decimus, came to his house and convinced him otherwise. "The Senate will think you're afraid," Decimus said with a smile. Caesar put on his toga and left. But this time, unlike in real history, he was warned. One of his guards stopped him near the forum and handed him a letter. It was from a loyal Roman. It warned Caesar that Brutus, Cassius, and others were planning to kill him. Caesar read it carefully, and instead of heading straight to the Senate building, he changed his plan. Caesar wears armor. Caesar went back to his home. He didn't cancel the meeting, but he did something smart. He put on light armor under his clothes. He also ordered a group of elite guards to hide inside the building, ready to protect him. The stage was set. When Caesar walked into the Senate chamber, everything looked normal. The senators smiled at him. Brutus stood calmly. Cassius nodded in greeting. They were all hiding daggers under their togas. As planned, one of the senators, Julius Caesar, walked up to Caesar and grabbed his robe. That was the signal for the others to attack. But when the first dagger was pulled, Caesar was ready. He threw off his robe, revealing the hidden armor beneath. His guards stormed the chamber. Chaos broke out. Several conspirators were killed on the spot. Cassius tried to run but was cut down. Brutus barely escaped. Some senators ran for their lives. Blood stained the marble floor. Julius Caesar survived. The city of Rome was shocked. Just days later, Caesar appeared in public with bandages on his arm and fire in his voice. "They tried to kill me because they fear change," he shouted. "But I am Rome's protector, and Rome will not be ruled by traitors." He acted fast. The Senate was shut down temporarily. Brutus and the others who escaped were declared enemies of the state. The people cheered. Many loved Caesar for giving them land, food, and hope. A new law passed. Caesar was now dictator for life. No more yearly votes. No more pretending the Republic still worked. The Republic is over. Caesar changed after the attack. He became colder and more careful. He no longer trusted senators. He formed a private council of advisors made up of soldiers and loyal followers, not nobles. He passed new laws to help the poor. He gave land to soldiers. He started building huge public works. To the people, Caesar looked like a hero. To the Senate, he looked like a king. Brutus and Cassius had escaped Rome. They went to the east, to Syria and Greece, trying to gather armies and claim they were saving the Republic. Caesar sent his top generals, Mark Antony and Lepidus, to hunt them down. It wasn't even a fair fight. Cassius was cornered and took his own life. Brutus held out longer, but was captured near the sea while trying to escape to Egypt. Rome waited to see how Caesar would punish Brutus. People expected a huge public execution, but Caesar surprised everyone. He met Brutus in private. No one knows what they said. A few days later, Brutus was led through the forum in chains and quietly executed. No speech, no trial, just silence. After that, things moved fast. Caesar wore purple robes. Only kings had worn those before. Statues of Caesar were placed in temples. People burned incense and called him a god. Coins were printed with his face. Caesar wasn't just a politician anymore. He was a living legend. But there was one problem. No heir. Caesar had no son. His grandnephew Octavian was studying far away and not involved in politics yet. Caesar hadn't adopted him in this version of history because he didn't think he needed to. One man started rising fast, Mark Antony. He was smart, popular with the army, and very loyal for now. But even loyalty has its limits. And in the shadows of Caesar's glory, a new question rose. What happens when Caesar dies? He had no legitimate heirs. His grandnephew Octavian was still in Illyria, studying far from the political chaos of Rome. Mark Antony, Caesar's most trusted general, seemed to be the most likely candidate to succeed him, but Caesar's survival had made everything more complicated. Even though Caesar was alive, his grip on power was firm but fragile. His enemies were still out there, and a new kind of power struggle had begun. In private, Caesar had already declared himself dictator for life, but the Senate and the people of Rome had yet to fully accept the idea of a single ruler forever. Mark Antony held significant power over the military. And the eastern provinces? He was popular with the army and had helped Caesar win many battles. Octavian, Caesar's grandnephew, wasn't involved in Roman politics yet, but his name still carried weight. Caesar had adopted him in his will, making Octavian the official heir to his estates and title. Despite the growing tension, Caesar kept pushing forward with his reforms. He built roads, lowered taxes, and improved Rome's infrastructure. He also continued his wars of expansion. Caesar's popularity with the masses grew, and his enemies in the Senate became even more jealous. They wanted to stop him, but they knew they were powerless to do so. Caesar's rule was becoming more autocratic every day. Antony, meanwhile, continued to build his own power base, often clashing with Caesar's advisors and loyalists. Antony also began to take on roles outside Rome. He governed the eastern provinces and even spent a lot of time with Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt, which made many people question his loyalty to Rome. One issue loomed large for Caesar's future: the lack of a clear heir. Caesar had no sons, and his only biological child, Julia, had died years earlier. Octavian, though adopted by Caesar, was still young and inexperienced. But Caesar had no intention of leaving Rome without a leader. He believed he could rule for many more years. However, as Caesar aged, it became increasingly clear that someone would have to take over when he was gone. In 43 BC, Caesar fell ill. Though the sickness was not serious, it made people nervous. Mark Antony saw this as an opportunity. He began moving his troops into Italy, claiming he needed to protect Caesar in his weakened state. Meanwhile, Octavian returned from Illyria. Caesar's death was now more likely than ever, and Octavian knew he had to act fast. At the time of Caesar's illness, Mark Antony was the general who controlled the legions. But Octavian had something more powerful than armies: Caesar's will. Octavian made a calculated move. He sailed from Illyria to Rome, where he was greeted by both the people and the Senate. He brought with him a document that Caesar had signed in secret, declaring Octavian to be his adopted son and heir to all of his power. When Octavian arrived, the Senate immediately recognized him as Caesar's true successor. This declaration angered Mark Antony, who had long considered himself Caesar's right-hand man. He tried to rally support, but Octavian, though young and inexperienced, had the advantage of Caesar's legacy and the loyalty of the people. Mark Antony, feeling threatened, refused to accept Octavian's claim. He was determined to hold on to the power he had earned through his military leadership. In 42 BC, a showdown was inevitable. Octavian and Antony began to gather their own followers. Octavian used clever politics, while Antony used his military might. The Senate was torn between the two, but in the end, Antony had to accept that Octavian was now the rightful heir of Caesar's estate. The split of power. With Caesar gone, Rome had to find a new way to be governed. Though Octavian had legal power as Caesar's heir, Antony held significant military control. They both needed each other to maintain Rome's stability. In 42 BC, they made a deal. The Second Triumvirate was formed. Octavian, Antony, and another general, Lepidus, would rule Rome together. But the arrangement was temporary. Deep down, both Octavian and Antony wanted to be the one ruler of Rome. For the next 2 years, Octavian worked hard to secure his position. He used his father's name to gain the loyalty of soldiers and citizens. He also made careful alliances with other powerful families in Rome. Meanwhile, Antony, though still in control of the East, made the mistake of getting too close to Cleopatra. He began to give her more influence over Roman affairs, which didn't sit well with the Senate or the Roman people. Antony was seen as weakening Rome by allowing a foreign queen to have too much power. In 40 BC, Octavian and Antony clashed in a series of political battles, which culminated in the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. Octavian had the support of the Senate and the people, while Antony's forces were weakened by internal divisions. Cleopatra, still loyal to Antony, led her own fleet into the battle. The battle was disastrous for Antony. His fleet was destroyed, and Cleopatra's forces retreated back to Egypt. Antony, faced with defeat, took his own life. After Antony's death, Octavian became the undisputed ruler of Rome, but he didn't declare himself king or emperor. Instead, he carefully re-established the Roman Republic in name. He gave the Senate power, but in practice, he held all the real power. In 27 BC, Octavian took the title Augustus, meaning the Exalted One. This marked the beginning of the Roman Empire, although Augustus still called himself a princeps or first citizen, not an emperor. Caesar's survival would have changed Rome forever. Had Caesar died on the Ides of March, history would have been different, with Octavian rising as the first emperor. But with Caesar surviving, the power struggle between him, Antony, and Octavian accelerated the end of the Roman Republic and the birth of the Roman Empire. Julius Caesar had died, not from an assassin's knife, but from illness. He'd passed away peacefully, leaving behind a city full of fear, ambition, and questions. He had ruled Rome like a king, though he never wore a crown. Now, the man who replaced him would decide what Rome would become, a free republic again, or something else entirely. 2 men stood at the center of it all. Mark Antony, Caesar's powerful general, respected and loved by the army. Octavian, Caesar's adopted son and heir, clever and ambitious, though still young. And far away in Egypt, another figure watched and waited, Queen Cleopatra, along with her son Caesarion, who she claimed was Caesar's real child. Caesar's death shook Rome. People flooded the streets to mourn him. Statues were built. A massive funeral was held. His body was burned in the Forum, and crowds wept like they had lost a father. Octavian stood before the people and gave a passionate speech. Caesar was not just a man, he said. He was a god among us. I am his son, and I will protect what he built. The people cheered. They called Octavian the Son of the Divine, a powerful title in a city that worshipped gods. After Caesar's death, Rome was divided between Antony and Octavian. At first, they tried to work together. They formed the Second Triumvirate, a group of 3 men, Octavian, Antony, and Lepidus, to rule Rome as a team. But teamwork didn't last. Antony ruled the East, including Egypt. Octavian ruled the West, including Rome itself. Each man wanted full control, and neither trusted the other. Antony became close to Cleopatra, and they even raised Caesarion together. Many Romans were angry about this. They saw Cleopatra as a dangerous foreign queen. Some even feared that Antony wanted Caesarion to rule Rome one day. Octavian was young, but he was smart. He knew how to play politics better than anyone. He spread rumors about Antony. He's more Egyptian than Roman now, Octavian told the Senate. He plans to make Cleopatra your queen. This scared the Roman people. To protect himself, Octavian built up his army, made strong alliances, and gained the support of most of the Senate. He also began to use a new title, Imperator, meaning commander. It was the early version of the word emperor. Rome was getting ready for a war between 2 rulers. The Battle of Actium 31 BC, the final fight came at Actium, a naval battle off the coast of Greece. Antony and Cleopatra brought a large fleet of ships. Octavian, with help from his brilliant general Agrippa, brought more. The sea battle was long and bloody. Cleopatra panicked and fled with her ships. Antony followed her. His troops were left confused and leaderless. Many surrendered. Octavian won the battle and the war. After fleeing back to Egypt, Antony and Cleopatra knew it was over. They had lost their armies. Their allies were gone. Octavian was marching toward Alexandria. Rather than be captured and paraded through Rome in chains, Antony took his own life. Cleopatra followed soon after, choosing to die on her own terms. Their son, Caesarion, was captured by Octavian's men. Though just a teenager, he was seen as a threat. Octavian had him quietly executed. There could only be one Caesar. With no rivals left, Octavian returned to Rome in triumph. He did something clever. He pretended to give power back to the Senate. Rome is free again, he said. But everyone knew the truth. The Senate gave him back all the power, more than ever before. He was now ruler for life. In 27 BC, they gave him a new title, Augustus, the Exalted One. He didn't call himself king. He didn't wear a crown. But make no mistake, Augustus was Rome's first true emperor. The Republic was gone, even if the name remained. What changed in this timeline? In real history, Julius Caesar was killed in 44 BC, and civil war followed. Octavian rose from the chaos and became Augustus years later. But in this timeline, where Caesar survived the Ides of March, everything happened faster. The Republic didn't collapse. Caesar crushed it while alive. Octavian didn't rise as a surprise. He rose as Caesar's chosen son. Antony didn't fight Brutus. He fought Octavian directly. Cleopatra never dreamed of ruling Rome because Caesar never died to protect her. The Roman Empire was born earlier, stronger, and more openly imperial. There were no more masks. No more pretending that Rome was still a republic. The legacy of the unstabbed Caesar. By surviving the Ides of March, Julius Caesar created a future with no Senate power, no Brutus or Cassius. No need for a long civil war. An empire built directly from Caesar's rule. A more ruthless Octavian who learned from his father's mistakes. In this version of history, Rome didn't fall into chaos. It was reshaped by Caesar's survival. Power didn't just shift. It became permanent. Caesar didn't die on the Ides of March ... But his survival gave birth to something even more powerful. An empire where no one dared to carry a dagger again. Subscribe for more.